Today we'll cover the manual requisition creation process in iPurchase. We have previously discussed the creation of requisitions using hosted catalogs in iPurchase, and we've also discussed how to create requisitions via punch-outs. Today we'll do it the old-fashioned way, by manually keying in the data. This is the requisition workbench screen. iPurchase generates a sequential number, which is tracked by iPurchase. The entry date shows the date the requisition was entered into iPurchase. The need date is the date we require these goods to be delivered by. We'll enter January 10th of 2011. Using the requisition type field, we can classify this rec. These are user-defined requisition types. You can decide what goes into this list. Let's classify this as an expense requisition. Here, on the left, we can choose our supplier using a couple of different methods. We can enter a supplier number, which produces a list of matching suppliers. Or, we can enter a supplier's name and choose that. Once we select the supplier, related contact information is pre-filled. iPurchase will default to the supplier's default currency here in the center. The supplier's default ship via and buyer are also pre-filled. These fields can be changed if necessary. Here, in the center column, we have some information from the integrated ERP solution, which, for the purposes of this demonstration, is the QAD EA application. We have the ship to, the bill to, and the site. On the right, we have the buyer and the originator, which in this case is me, the person entering the rec. We can key in requisitions on behalf of other employees in the organization here. If we were an assistant or representative, we would enter our supervisor's name here. We also have the delivery destination and so on. The Need a Quote field is important. iPurchase will allow us to generate RFQs should we have the need. Another important field is the High Priority flag, which will trigger the High Priority icon to be displayed on this page in the requisition inquiry and in the emails that are sent to the approvers. Another key field is the Are All Items Required checkbox. This determines whether or not an approver needs to approve or reject the entire requisition, or if they can selectively approve individual line items while rejecting others. We'll leave that unchecked. We'll save the header, and now you will notice that we have a few more options available to us. We can delete the rec. We can also look at an audit trail. iPurchase keeps an audit trail of each and every field change, who changed the field, what the old value was, the new value, and the date and time of the change. All changes made to the requisitions are completely audited for SOX and FDA CFR 21 Part 11 compliance purposes. We can submit the requisition for approval. This quote functionality here is part of the RFQ processor. A requisition number has been created for us. iPurchase allows for the copying of requisitions. We can also create a reminder in Outlook. Here, iPurchase indicates that this rec has not been submitted yet. There are more tabs here where we can enter internal notes and/or external notes. External notes will print on the purchase order, whereas internal notes will only be seen by other users of iPurchase. We can add attachments to the quote, and they can be any type of file, a Word document, a PDF, a picture. An unlimited number of attachments can be added at the header level as well as to each line. We can also include master comments. If master comments are defined, a list of all comments will be displayed with the first line of the comment displayed to the right. If one line is insufficient to identify the comment, you can click on the preview icon to view the entire 15 lines of text. Once you've found a comment, you can click on the blue arrow to add it to the requisition. Simply click the red X to remove a comment if needed. Now we'll demonstrate how to create items. You can search by item number. The more that's typed in, the closer the matches are. We can search by description. We can search by supplier part number. Or we can search by catalog number if we have the catalogs loaded for the supplier. So, there are many different ways we can search for items. We'll simply use the part number and we'll pick this power cord. The default unit of measure has been populated with each. We can change that if needed. The standard cost has been populated, and we can change the current cost if needed. We can fill in my department, which is limited based on my user profile. The accounts we can choose are filtered by the requisition type, which we chose earlier as expense. iPurchase will also limit the account selection to only those that are valid for the selected department, which is operations. We can filter accounts based on certain criteria to give users a more manageable selection list. We can also select sub-accounts that tie back to other fields. We can select the site for the line. We can include a project code and mark it as taxable and classify it using a UNSPSC code, allowing for in-depth analysis later. Once we have that information, we can enter internal and external notes, add attachments, and add master comments. These 3 tabs function in the same way as in the header. Now we'll enter a brand new item called Some Other Item, and we'll need to enter an identifying description so the supplier knows what to ship us. We'll enter our quantity and select the unit of measure, the cost, and so on. This is an item that has never been ordered through iPurchase before. We will now save and close. We now have 2 line items in our requisition. We can enter as many as necessary. Because this vendor is set up as a catalog vendor, we can select Add from Catalog, which would take us to the catalog screen to select items and add them to this rec. Since we now have CDW set up as a punch-out vendor, we can also select Add from Punch-out. But typically, you would not have the 3 different scenarios, punch-out, catalog, and manual, in use at the same time. Vendors would either be set up as punch-out enabled or catalog enabled. At this point, we're ready to submit our requisition for approval. Notice here that we can see who the approvers will be before we actually submit this for approval. This simulation determines, based on our requisition data, who will need to approve the requisition. Here is the list of approvers iPurchase calculated. Once again, this is only a simulation because we have not yet submitted the requisition for approval. We'll submit it now. At this point, emails were sent out to the first level approvers. So you see that Supervisor 1 was sent an email with an approval status of pending. We'll discuss approvals in depth in another demonstration. The approvals did go out. We now have the ability to retract the requisition at any time up until the last person has approved the rec. We'll go ahead and retract this rec, which allows me to make changes. For instance, if we forgot to add an item or forgot to add notes, etc. So, we've retracted the rec, made my changes, and now we can resubmit. Notice here how it now says Approval Attempt Number 2. If we scroll down, you'll see our previous submission attempt and that it was retracted by Frank, the user we're signed in as. This is the little retract icon. So, it will track the complete history of all approval attempts. If you attempt to get this rec approved 6 times, and 6 times it was rejected, you can scroll through this tab to identify who rejected it and why. All notes will be displayed on this tab. That's how you create requisitions. Again, we'll talk more about the approval process in a different demo. For convenience, we can copy any previously created rec by coming in here and clicking on the Copy Requisition icon. This will copy the rec and create a new one that's linked to the original, and we can submit this new rec using the same methods discussed earlier. This concludes the Manual Requisition demo. For more information about iPurchase or any of ISS Group's suite of add-value products, visit our website, issgroup.com.